Welcome to the Masterful Coach Podcast with Molly Claire. If you're a coach who's ready to impact more lives, make more money, and create a life you love, you're in exactly the right place. Get the support you deserve as a female entrepreneur. Master your coaching skills, grow your ideal business, and honor your priorities in your personal life. Are you in? Let's get started with your host, best-selling author and master life and business coach, Molly Claire.
Hey coaches, I am so excited about today's guest because she brings such a brilliant perspective to all of you coaches. She has a fantastic business that, with topics that are close to my heart as well. And she brings just an interesting background coming from being a lawyer to now being a master coach and working with moms. So you are going to love this interview with Michelle. So Michelle, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my goodness, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so tell my audience a little bit about you, how you came to be in this moment in time.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Michelle Grosser, and I live with my husband and two daughters. They are 6 and 7 now. Now we're in Houston. We just moved from Miami a couple of weeks ago. So that's been its whole story in and of itself. But really for the last 15 years, I've been practicing law in Miami. And I've had my own practice for the last 10 years. And at the beginning of the pandemic, like probably a lot of people, I think for the first time in a long time, I finally had the space to really reevaluate a lot of things and ask myself a lot of tough questions. And I think what I came to realize is how burnt out I actually was at that point. I think I had just been like grinding and pushing and building and doing all of the things for so long. And I had really young children at that time. And came to realize that I wasn't actually running my law firm. It was the other way around, right? It was just running me. Mm-hmm. And I had never really even asked myself, like, is this really what you even want to be doing? I just did it because, I had a mountain of student loan debt. And it's like, I got a law degree. Of course, I'm going to be a lawyer. But I had changed so much. And I had this real deep call to just serve women in particular. And I'm like, well, I love to learn and I'm a nerd and it's the pandemic and all these things. Like I'm going to become a life coach. And probably like a lot of you listening, I signed up for a certification program and thought I would learn tools to help these women I wanted to help. And, we talked about it just a minute ago on my podcast, but little did I know my own world would be turned completely upside down in the best way.
Yes.
But I learned things about myself that I had been so blind to for 30 something years, and how disconnected I was from my body, how disconnected I was from my emotions, all the stories and paradigms I had around what it means to be successful and productive and strong. And all of these things were just kind of like challenged in a good way. And I was really able to tear so much of it apart and kind of rebuild it intentionally with these new glasses, I guess I'd been given. And in the journey of healing from burnout, I really started learning about the nervous system and seeing it as the through line to so many different mental, emotional, physical symptoms I'd been experiencing. And when I really started learning how to regulate my nervous system, it was just this like light bulb for me. Like I must get this word out to all the people. Because so many of us are walking around feeling so dysregulated and not finding answers to why we're not feeling well. And ultimately,
we try so many things to fix it.
So many things. And we know something's off, but we see the doctors and they're like, everything's, the labs are within normal range. And, we think like, well, she can do it. Why can't I do it? Am I not cut out for like motherhood and entrepreneurship? Like whatever the stories are that come up, and you're right. But we know something's off. And for me, that was my big thing when I learned how to regulate my nervous system. I mean, it sounds like I'm overstating it, but everything else changed. And now that's become my life's work, is really teaching people what it means and looks like to have a regulated nervous system. And then ultimately everything else that flows from that just becomes so much easier and better.
Yeah, because it's like I think about, um when we're talking about the nervous system in my program, and this idea that there's there's the part of our brain that's the change center of change, right? And
Yeah,
then we have this survival brain that's like fighting against that. And so, doesn't it make sense, right? That as you're helping, and specifically, you work with moms. She has a podcast, the Calm Mom podcast. You'll hear more all about her later, but working with moms. And I think what a beautiful thing to think that when you're helping them regulate that nervous system and you say everything flows from it, doesn't it make sense? Because if we feel safe and we have that sense of a grounded foundation, all the things that they want to do as a mom can be happening, right?
that's right.
Meeting their goals, building a business if they are, being there for their kids. So yeah, I think it
Yeah.
can't be overstated, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. And especially from a parenting perspective, but really even just interacting with other adults, our children actually share a nervous system with us until they're about 7 years old. So much of that co-regulating, right? The things that we want to see in them, it starts with us. It starts with
Yes.
us. And then our social nervous system is such a huge part of how we grow a business or participate in our community or all of these different things. So really
Yeah.
growing an awareness of like, how is my interaction with other people impacting me? And being aware of that from a nervous system perspective is really empowering for any like reaching any goals that we want, or however that looks.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I want to talk more about what you said about sharing a nervous system, because I think, especially in the coaching world, we can have these ideas. I mean, this is something I've really tried to like speak up. I don't want to say against, but speak up to kind of broaden the perspective. Is it can be easy for coaches to have this mentality of other people can affect us, right? Like our thoughts and our experience we create is like totally separate from other people, and that's
Mm,
actually not true. It
mm-mm.
is true that there is power in awareness of our thoughts and our mindset and our beliefs, and that we participate in a very big way in creating our experience. But
Yeah.
it's not realistic, not true, and not helpful to believe that we as human beings do not impact each other in the way we interact.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, and a lot of it, I think, if we're operating in that vein, is subconscious and we're just not aware of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
because we have what we call mirror neurons. And our brains are actually wired to mirror what we see in other people, right? So if we see someone who has a big smile on their face, or even now as I'm watching you and you're nodding as I speak,
Mhm.
I'm wired to nod back to you in response without me even being aware of it, right? Or we see, our child is crying and we'll make a face where we kind of furrow our brow and we look, sad or concerned, and we meet them there. We don't consciously think to do
That's
that. We have
right.
mirror neurons, right? And that applies in everything. It applies in the boardroom. It applies, in the kitchen as we're making dinner with our partners. Like it applies in every sphere. We have an impact on each other. And as you were saying that, the phrase that was coming to me a lot is like you hear like, well, protect your peace, or like all these different things. And that's not actually how we're wired. We're actually wired not to protect these things that are so important to us, but to project them. Like I can have an impact on the people around me. And ultimately, that's the leadership position I can take instead of trying to just, live in a silo and protect all of
That's
these things.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I think something that I see a lot in the coaching world, and especially, when coaches come to me, they may be trained in like a specific area. Maybe it's like mindset and beliefs, or, just kind of one area. And
Mhm.
and I think that what you just said, like, being in a silo is something that I think a lot of coaches fall into that trap, because
Yeah.
they think that if they're strong enough and they have a good enough mindset and they're determined enough, that they can create this world where they are doing everything by themselves. And
Mhm.
it's just a no, right? It just doesn't work. And I think that, so yeah, I want you to speak more to this. So for my audience listening right now,
Mhm.
they are coaches.
Yeah.
Many of them have found themselves overworked, overburdened,
Yeah.
working really hard to build this business.
Yes.
Many of them are balancing life and business at the same time. And let's make note of this, right? I want you to all hear this. As entrepreneurs building this kind of personal business, it is going to bring up your fears. It brings up
Mhm.
so much in you.
Mhm.
And I think it can be easy for us to be frustrated with that, but let's just acknowledge that that's a part of the deal, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So for my audience listening, just any whatever comes to mind first as far as how
Yeah.
you could maybe give them some insights or educate them into how their nervous system and regulation or lack thereof is potentially impacting them.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. I have a lot of thoughts right now, but I'm going
Yeah,
to try
I
to
bet we
organize
need to
them.
talk for a long time to
Yeah.
get
So I
cover
think
all this.
one of the first things is that if as Molly was speaking, you're like, yeah, that's me. That's how I feel. I can relate because that's how I built my law firm, right? It was 10 years of like, I'm just going to work the hardest and I'm going to be the smartest and I'm going to hire the people and I'm going to like network and I'm going to do all the scary things and I'm just going to build this thing by myself by sheer might. Like I'm just going to will it to happen. Um, and it was really, really hard. But it worked. And then it led me straight to burnout. And that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't sustainable. And in
Mm-hmm.
growing a coaching business where ultimately a lot of the end goals were similar, but I'm like, the journey there, I'm committed to it being so different than how I built a law firm. It's going to be completely different. And the biggest reason why, I think, in the foundation why, and when we talk about like understanding why we want to do these things, if I want to be sustainable, is that I wanted to be embodied in what I was teaching. So I didn't want to have women coming to me who are feeling exhausted and burnt out and not being able to find the reason why or difficulty slowing down, receiving rest, all of these different things, and then preach to them about all the things they should do while I was going to turn around and like push and strive and build in those
Mm-hmm.
ways. So the first thing is like, okay, I want to actually embody the things that I'm teaching. I want to live them out. So many times when we find ourselves coaching in a silo like that, or looking at our clients in a silo and compartmentalizing what it is they're coming to us wanting coaching around. We're looking at the tip of the iceberg and we're missing everything under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I love about, the way in which I understand that you are teaching and training coaches is that when we focus only on mindset with it, which I think is a huge part of the coaching
Mm-hmm.
industry. And don't get me wrong, it's very important, but that's a lot of the tip of the iceberg stuff. And there's so much subconscious
Mm-hmm.
patterning going on beneath the surface that we're not aware of. There's so much going on somatically in our body that we're not aware of. And when we're coaching our clients from the neck up, we're missing everything that's happening in the rest of their body.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me. And as I learned um, when I learned about the nervous system, what we're learning as we're studying our nervous system is that only 20% of the nerves in our body actually run from our head down to our body. So that means when we're only focusing on mindset work, ultimately that's 20% of the battle. And we're missing all of the messaging that's coming from our body up to our brain, right? The other
Mm-hmm.
80%.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're focusing on only mindset and we're not paying attention and treating and coaching everything that's happening subconsciously behind the scenes, we can't outthink a dysregulated nervous system.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, how many podcasts have we all listened to? How many, programs have we bought? How many books have we read? Same thing with our clients. And then they still have so much trouble actually putting these things into practice and they feel the
Mm-hmm.
blocks and they're like, man, I know what to do, but I can't bring myself to do it. And it's because of everything that's happening beneath the surface,
Mm-hmm.
everything that's happening, right, from the neck down that we have to be able to integrate into our coaching, and ultimately for us as the coaches into the ways in which we live. And that's the integration that I think is missing in a lot of coaching.
Yes, yes. And I think I want to speak to this for a minute because definitely when I found coaching, I started with the mindset piece
Yeah,
and I thought it was everything because it is a big deal,
it's
right?
important.
And,
Yes.
and it's kind of like um yeah, I started there and I think the reason I was drawn to it and I think the reason many are drawn to it is because the intellectual, the mindset, it feels a little more tangible then emotion work and the body that just, it almost seems a little woo woo and
Oh,
something we're just
yes.
not familiar with because we've been taught to ignore, push down, and outthink our feelings. That's how
Yep.
we've been conditioned, right? And so what I love about, you being here and speaking to my audience is you came from, right, a legal background. You
Mhm.
were all about, right, academics, logical perspective on things.
Yes.
And so I love this because those of you listening that are coaches and are maybe trying to understand where or how this might fit with you, if you kind of perceive or experience yourself as more cognitive,
Mhm.
um, like give your sales pitch to people that feel that way. Why does this matter in the most practical sense for coaches to understand this whole person view?
Yeah, that's so good. More than 98% of every thought we think, every word we say, and every action we take is unconscious. We're not even aware of it. And it was formed decades ago, probably in
Mm-hmm.
those first 7 years of life, right? And we've adopted these, ultimately, a lot of them are coping mechanisms and survival tactics, right? As parts of our personality and our ways of being and how we identify and all of these different things. And that was me for so long. I'm like, I'm a high achiever. I get stuff done. I'm super productive. Give me like a task list, a to do, and I will knock the heck out of that thing and I will get
Mm-hmm.
stuff done. And I'm strong. And I'm not one of those, for so long, I was like, I'm not one of those emotional women. I'm not
Right.
dramatic. I don't cry at movies, right? I'm like, I'm not one of those. I'm a lawyer, right? I hang with the tough guys, the big dogs. And what I didn't realize is that what I thought was so strong
Mm-hmm.
was actually holding me back in so many ways because those were all coping mechanisms for things that felt really scary to me. And it wasn't until I was able to get real about that and learn what it meant to connect with my body, and my intuition and my emotions, really opened up a whole new level of strength ultimately, and healing that I desperately needed. So I wasn't pushing and proving
Yes.
at every turn. And it felt very woo for a long time. And it took me
Mhm.
a while to buy into it until I
Mhm.
had a moment where I was like, wow, like my husband just said something that would have thrown me off the rails 6 months ago. And that did
Yes.
not even, it's subtle, right? My
Yes.
kids are
Yes.
doing something, they're jumping on the bed and throwing stuff around, and that the house is a mess that would have driven me berserk 6 weeks
Mhm.
ago. And my capacity has expanded. And part of it
Mhm.
is my mindset, but a bigger part is I know how to create space in my body and in my energetic and emotional body. And that's the magic, right? That's where I was really
Yes.
creating space.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I love that you do this work for moms. In when I work with my master coaches, we just chatted about this right in our before starting to record here, but you know, my coaches are experiencing this work as they're learning to hold this kind of space for their clients, right? Help
Yeah.
their clients from this whole person view, this multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, they're integrating it for themselves. And it's exactly that word you said. It's that capacity, it's that emotional and even mental capacity that
Yes.
expands. And so I want to highlight something that you said, like those of you listening, it's like we think that the power and the strength and the achievement is in our head, right? From the neck up, like you said.
We do.
And in truth, when we invite all of ourselves into this, and
Hmm.
we heal and we make space and we attend to our feelings and we really actually address the fears underneath and the needs underneath,
Yeah.
that is where all the power comes, because
Yes.
that is when we can be present, we can be connected with our business and our mission, we can be present and connected with our kids, with
Yes.
our partner, right? That's where
And
it
our
is.
clients.
And
And
our
that's where our
clients.
clients, that's where they have the breakthroughs.
That's right.
It's
That's
not the
right.
to-do list. It's not like the next task. It's not, it's I took before I took the certification that I did, I took like an online life
Mm-hmm.
coach by a very well-known,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
successful person that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of you probably listened to his podcast or whatever. And I got through the whole thing. This was my first like opening to coaching. And I'm like, wow, that is not what I thought I was going to learn, because I
Mm-hmm.
could have Googled all of that stuff, like a
Yes,
morning
yes,
routine,
yes.
right? How to
That's
set
right.
goals, how to like, and I'm like, helpful, absolutely. But there's so much I want to work with people before we even get to that point. And that's what you're talking about. It's like so much of the coaching space is stuck in that surface level. Like, how can I help you get to the next level with just like our goals and our tactics and our plans and our and yes, it's important, but there's so much going on beneath that that needs to be healed and set straight first. And then we
Yes.
can do a lot of that stuff. And it's so much of it is just unconscious and lives in our body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why, like I want my coaches to be equipped to actually help people get the lasting results that they really want.
Yes.
Right. And lasting in that it's this thing that we've used this word capacity, right? When we expand our emotional capacity, when we build emotional resiliency,
Yeah.
that is when, and when my coach is listening, when you can help your clients to do that, that is when
Game
all
changer.
all the things we want to do in our life and experience are available to us, and we can go toward them from a place of feeling connected rather than a place from trying to achieve so that one day we can finally rest and think that we're worthy.
That's it. That's it. That's it. And even the name of my podcast, The Calm Mom, like I'm going to change it soon. It's like already in the works, but I just struggled with that because that's not the goal. It's about when we talk about being regulated in our nervous system, it's not to be calm all the time. It's to
Yes.
be, and it's the word that you said, it's to be resilient. It's that I
Yes.
want to be able to experience the highs and those moments where like I do feel a little bit of that frenetic energy and I have a big deadline to meet, or I feel a little nervous about launching this new thing into the world, or it feels scary. I can experience that. And my nervous system is resilient enough that it can come back down to baseline stress level. And I'm not stuck, right, in that hamster
Yes.
wheel of
Yes.
anxiety and all of that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the name of the game. It's resilience.
That's exactly what it is. And that's, my I mean, there when I work with my clients, there are great things that they get out of it, right? They have the experience, they have the skills that can help their business, all these bullet points that I list. And in truth, the best part, the very best part that changes their lives is the emotional resiliency and
Yes.
being able to build that in others. That's what it is. And everything else just builds off of that. That's like
Yeah.
at the heart of it.
And it's
Yeah.
things we wouldn't expect that build off of that. Confidence
Right?
builds off of that, right?
Yes.
True, like efficient productivity builds off of that.
Yes.
Courage builds off of that. The ability to manage risks and take risks, our social connections with others. So networking and pitching, right? And sales, all the things that so many people feel uncomfortable with. It all stems from having a regulated nervous system, all of it.
And one of the things, and I do want to have you share about sharing that nervous system up until the age of 7 in just a sec. I want to share an example, but I want you to talk about that. And then I feel like we could talk all day, but we'll wrap up here in just a few minutes. But I have to say that, in all of the work, the cognitive, like the mind mastery, the emotional resiliency, and all of this work, the best benefit for me personally is, and there are many, right? Like you said, it makes me more resilient in my business, all these things. But the best thing for me is that my 13-year-old daughter has a mom that knows how to self-regulate.
Wow.
I know how to self-regulate, and I can be present with her when she is up and down and round and round.
Yes.
And I have seen, like, this is such a big deal to me. This is probably, I would say, over this last year, this has been the biggest gift that I've experienced this year, is being with my daughter and being able to be present with her, being able to be steady for her.
Yes.
And watching her right before my very eyes improve her own emotional regulation, improve her self-awareness, and to be able to see her emotional maturity skyrocketing.
Come on, what a gift for her. Yeah.
That's it. I'm like, you know what? I love my business. I love that I help all these people. And I have to say that I can be with my 13-year-old daughter and be what I feel is like the best possible mom I could be for her right now. I mean, come on, that's it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's beautiful and it's a gift for us and it's a gift. I truly believe it's one of the biggest gifts we can give our children is learning
Yes.
how to be emotionally resilient and learning how to be with their emotions. Because I think that's another misconception too that I think people have is that when we talk about emotional regulation or emotional resiliency, it's that we have the capacity to like push away the emotions that are labeled as
Right, right,
bad or like I just won't be impatient or I just won't be upset or I just won't be sad, right? And I'll be regulated and like happy all the time. And that's the actually that's like kind of the opposite of what we're wanting to teach
right.
our children
That's
and experience
disconnecting,
ourselves.
right? That's
Yeah,
cutting ourselves from like off from the neck down.
that's
Mhm.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So teaching her to be with all those
Yes.
emotions. And that's the word. Those are the words that you said that you could be with her
Mhm.
in all of that.
Mhm.
That's a
In
gift.
ways I just wasn't capable of before, not because I didn't want to be, but I didn't know and I hadn't built the muscles. So we really need to
Yes.
work on it.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So tell us about sharing a nervous system up until age 7. Tell us a little bit about that and then we will wrap up. And maybe we just need to do another episode or something. And everyone needs to go find you in the Calm Mom podcast to listen to more.
Okay. Um, so our children, I mean, it's a concept of co-regulating, right? And it's something that a lot of us have heard about. And it is the idea that we all have these mirror neurons. And as our children are learning, they don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex like we have as adults, right? It actually takes until we're about 25 years old for us to have that part of our brain be fully developed. And that's the part of our brain that you were talking about earlier that's responsible for the emotional regulation, that's responsible for being able to access our highest forms of communication. It's responsible for us to see things from different perspectives and put ourselves in other people's shoes. So our children, not only are they like immature emotionally, um, and unable to do that for themselves, they don't have the physical capacity to do a lot of these things that we ask them to do or expect of them. Like their brains literally can't do it. So they learn that through modeling what they're seeing from us, right? Which is why modeling and being it for our kids is so important. But on a more subtle level, I think their mirror neurons are mirroring what they see and what they're perceiving
Mm.
us. And it became a mantra for me for years as my children were really small, especially in seasons of, what felt like chaos at the time. But I would just remind myself that I was like, peace begins with me. Like if
Mm.
I'm going to expect them, to speak without screaming, I'm going to have to model that because their mirror neurons are watching and they're matching my tone of voice and my expression and my energy that I'm bringing to this, right?
Mm.
If I want peace to begin with me, then the way that I'm showing up and communicate my pace, right? We're rushing around all day long, but I
My
want my
gosh,
kids to be able
right?
to sit still when we go
Right.
somewhere. It has to begin with me because until they're able to learn how to do these things on their own, their little mirror neurons are just modeling and copying what it is that's happening because I'm their person, right? I'm their safe space. I'm the one that's teaching them all of these things. So until we're about 7, so much of the ways in which their nervous system is being formed is a direct mirror of what they're experiencing with
Mhm.
us as their parents.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to pause and I'm going to talk to all of you right now that are listening and feeling guilty or a deep sense
Mm,
of despair
yeah.
that you have ruined your kids or are ruining your kids as we speak. This is not true. It
Mm,
is not necessary or helpful to go there. And I think it's important that we all remember that, in my opinion anyway, we are all doing the best that we can with wherever we are and what capacity we have in the moment. And so I think if I think really it's like we have to give ourselves the space and permission to start where we are right now and start building these muscles of emotional
yeah.
resiliency, right? And understanding our nervous system and all of that. And there are just so many ways that we can do it. So
That's really beautiful.
yeah,
And I completely agree. We're all doing the best we can, every single one of us, human beings, right? With the
that's right.
information that we have wherever we're at in the moment. Um, and none of us do any of this perfectly. It's too hard, like parenting and life. It's too hard.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I think when we talk about just being compassionate with ourselves in this space, as parents is that none of us were taught this. Like this wasn't part, we just
That's
weren't.
right. That's right. And thinking about, like, I think back to my experience, and I know many of you listening can think back, and you maybe didn't see emotional regulation modeled for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I grew up, my mom was overworking all the time trying to put food on the table. So I was either by myself or I was with a mom who was in a constant state of stress. I didn't
Yeah.
have that in place, right? So I've had to learn it. I've had to kind of make up for that. And
That's
that's the
right.
great thing, is it's never too late for us to take care of those needs in ourselves and build those muscles.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. What a gift we have, an
I
opportunity.
know. I
Mhm.
know. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here in just a minute. I'm going to have you share any other, final words of advice, and also where people
Yeah.
can find you. But, as you're listening to this, I really, hopefully you're hearing in the words that both of us are speaking that this really is a big deal. It's something important for all of us to pay attention within ourselves. And
Mhm.
there are so many resources, whether you get Michelle's going to tell you more about, what she offers for moms specifically. And as coaches, if you are lacking in these things, it really is a big deal for you to understand the whole human being in front of you, and to understand how to build this emotional resiliency for yourself, because
Yeah.
it is going to make you more resilient as a business owner,
Mhm.
more in a healthier mental and emotional and physical state as a business
Yes.
owner, and
Right.
allow you to just be more present with your clients and everywhere in your life.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big deal. And I think, we obviously don't have time to talk about it today, because it's my life's work, but, um, the next step really is like the how. Like, okay, I'm starting to get an understanding of why this is so important. But how do I regulate my nervous system and
Yep.
then ultimately teach my clients to regulate their nervous systems so that one, we're coaching from a place of regulation, because if our clients are
Yes.
in survival brain, the things that we're sharing with them and teaching with them and trying to get them to see, that part of their brain where they can learn is literally shut down, right? So like our
That's
coaching
right.
isn't really effective. So we have to learn, like we're kind of understanding the how, but then we've got to get to we're learning the why, right? But then we have to get to like the how. How do we get to a place where we feel regulated?
Yes, yes, that's right. And I mean, and this is, so coaches listening, you can definitely apply for the next round of master coach training, but this is what I am doing, is teaching
Yeah,
you how to do this stuff with your clients, and it will
beautiful.
make you a phenomenal coach, and it will impact you personally. So, I mean, that is like my
Yes.
how. But Michelle, tell them about how you help women with the how, the moms listening to this that want this personally.
Yeah. So there are so many different practices. And ultimately, that's what we talk a lot about on my podcast. It's called The Calm Mom. And in my coaching, and we have a group program, all about regulating our nervous system, but it's looking holistically, like we've been talking from the start,
Mhm.
right? Big picture ways that we regulate our nervous system is that we heal our traumas. Those take up
Mhm.
so much space and cause dysregulation in our nervous system. We look at our
Mhm.
boundaries and our pace. A lot of those things cause dysregulation. Our
Mhm.
emotional hygiene, which is a huge part of, I know, the work that you teach too.
Mhm.
Like our emotions take up so much space within us. And if we want to shrink our capacity, man, we just avoid our emotions, deny our
Yeah, that'll
emotions,
do it
don't
right
deal with them,
there.
and that will shrink your capacity so quickly. And then obviously the converse is also true, right? Learning how to be with those emotions and release them in healthy ways will expand your capacity in huge ways. And then I think in the micro, in the moment, I teach so many different somatic tools to regulate our nervous system. So things like breath and movement and sound and touch and all of these different somatic tools, that we can use, and then also turn around and teach our clients so they can learn how to regulate themselves in the
Mhm.
moment. So my podcast is, every episode, is full of, tools, somatic tools, nervous system regulating tools for anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout.
Mhm. Mhm. And you have, I think, and all of this will be in the show notes, those of you listening. But you have a private podcast helping with burnout specifically that you have an offer for in the show notes. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So it's a free 5-part private podcast series. It's called Heal Your Burnout. And we'll go through the 3 stages of burnout. So not only you, but you can also help your clients understand what level of burnout they might be experiencing. And then I go briefly through my 6-step framework to healing burnout. And a lot of it is learning how to complete this stress cycle with your nervous system and come back to baseline emotions, boundaries, our habits, our routine, all of these different things. So that's a great resource, and it's completely free. And we'll put that link in the show notes too.
Amazing. And then you have a membership, of course, as well.
Yeah. So we have a group coaching program. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's called Restore. We offer it quarterly. And it is just so good. And what I love about it and what I'm so proud about it, and it's very similar, I'm sure, to what you're teaching, Molly, what I'm gathering is that it goes beneath the surface.
That's right.
Yeah. So
That
it really
whole
goes
person.
to the core. Yep. Of why we do the things we do and how we can heal and let go of the things that aren't serving us anymore and really show up how we want to.
I love it. Well, this is great. So those of you listening, definitely follow Michelle, check out her podcast, the resources in the notes. You can find out about her membership. And thank you so much for being here. This has been amazing.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll talk with you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Masterful Coach podcast. Are you ready to build your amazing business with Molly as your coach? Check out www.mollyclaire.com to find out about Masterful Coach Foundations and the 10K Accelerator Method. It's the ultimate support for you as a coach building your ideal life and business.